Storm, void, introduction. The terrain of the tenebrous chance cosmology is intentionally ambiguous. It is a mythical metaphor, not a belief system. Its structures are designed to be inhabited internally, not obeyed externally. The archetypes within our structures do not seek equivalence with popular mythology, conventional fiction, or inherited religious frameworks unless explicitly stated. They operate independently, without reliance on familiar, symbolic shortcuts. This independence is deliberate. The aim is not recognition, but empowerment through individual visualization. Tenebrous chance does not support, oppose, or comment on real-world belief systems or ideologies. It functions as a closed, symbolic environment, insulated from moral prescription, cultural bias, or external doctrine. Meaning is generated internally by the participant, not supplied by the system. Part 1. Overview. Within the tenebrous chance cosmology exist three elemental forces: fire, storm, void. Fire is internal. Fire is impulse. Fire initiates. It represents internal drive, desire, and emotional ignition. It is the catalyst behind all action. Every outward projection begins here. Fire is volatile, subjective, and personal. It can empower or consume, depending on what it encounters. It is never sovereign. Storm and void are external. They are conditional determinants. Storm and void are not personal. They do not originate within the individual. They are environmental forces that act upon everything equally. They are sovereign elements. They do not serve gods, heroes, villains, or narratives. They are indifferent to intent and immune to morality. They do not reward belief, effort, or identity. They are the environments in which sovereignty is either revealed or exposed as fiction. Part 2. Storm. Storm is active pressure, not discipline, not duty, not chaos for its own sake. Storm manifests when systems are stressed beyond negotiation. Storm represents collision between forces that can no longer coexist. Momentum without consensus. Change that is loud, kinetic, and irreversible. Consequence arriving faster than preparation. Storm is conflict stripped of pretense, where old gods impose order and leviathans end cycles. Storm tests whether anything deserves to survive transition at all. In human terms, storm is confrontation. Storm is upheaval. Storm is the argument you cannot reason your way out of. Storm is the moment life stops negotiating. Storm does not explain itself. It does not wait for readiness, and it does not teach gently. Storm is where heroes are forged or exposed, where villains escalate or collapse, where anti-heroes sharpen or self-destruct, where wanderers discover whether they can stand without shelter. Storm is pressure with velocity. It forces movement. It breaks structures open. It accelerates reckoning. Part 3. Void. Void is absence with intent, not death, not nothingness, not despair. Void is what remains after collapse, when meaning fails, when identity dissolves, when narrative falls silent. Void represents silence after illusion, space after belief. The condition where nothing tells you who you are anymore. Void is post-collapse reality. It is the terrain revealed once the storm has passed and no voice speaks back. In human terms, void is solitude without story, identity without labels, motion without validation, being unseen and continuing anyway. Void is where pride dies, where myth dissolves, where external gods go quiet, where self-concept either crystallizes or evaporates. Void does not test strength. Void tests continuity. Can you move without praise? Can you choose without meaning? Can you act without a mirror? Most cannot. They rebuild idols immediately. Part 4. Integration. Storm without void creates addicts of chaos. Void without storm creates ascetics who never act. Together, they produce something rarer. Pressure without illusion. Action without narrative. Transformation without ceremony. Storm breaks, structures open. Void determines what survives the break. Storm forces change. Void selects what remains. Storm is the crucible. Void is the verdict. This is why tenebrous chance continually returns to these forces. Not because they are dramatic, but because they are final. They do not console. They do not justify. They do not care. They reveal. The 7 laws of fire, storm, and void. 1. Fire always lies about its scope. Fire feels infinite when it ignites. It isn't. Desire exaggerates itself. Fire says, "This will last," and means, "This feels good right now." Use fire to move. Never let it decide direction. 2. Fire that is not spent turns inward. Unexpressed drive doesn't become wisdom. It curdles. Fire denied becomes resentment, fantasy, or rot. Fire must be burned, or it will burn you. 3. Storm cannot be negotiated. Storm does not care about preparation, intention, or fairness. Systems fail mid-sentence. Lives rupture between breaths. The only question storm asks is whether you can remain standing while conditions change violently. 4. Storm reveals. It does not create. Storm doesn't make you weak. It shows you where you already were. What survives was real. What collapses was decoration. Storm is an audit, not an attack. 5. Void follows every storm without exception. After impact comes silence, always. No meaning rushes in to save you. No lesson is announced. Void is not punishment. It is the natural aftermath of reality correcting itself. 6. Void does not care about strength, only continuity. Power fails here, identity fails here. Only the ability to continue without narrative remains. If you need applause, void ends you. If you need permission, void erases you. 7. Integration is non-optional. Fire without storm becomes fantasy. Storm without void becomes addiction. Void without fire becomes paralysis. Together, they form a closed circuit. Fire initiates, storm tests, void selects. What remains after that cycle is not improved. It is true. Epilogue. Void and the Dark Sovereign. Void is not a birthplace in the maternal sense. It is the aftermath, the scorched ground after belief systems burn down. Post-collapse, post-identity, post-plea. Nothing left that needs applause, witnesses, or permission. This is why it pairs with the Dark Sovereign archetype. Void is the condition. The Dark Sovereign is the consequence. Void is absence without lack. Emptiness that does not ache. It does not ask to be filled, because it has already outlived meaning. Validation dies there. Hope dies there. Fear limps a few steps further, then dies too. From that terrain, nothing emerges accidentally. The Dark Sovereign is not born into void. He is what remains when everything else proves unnecessary. He does not rule because he wants to. Want is a pre-collapse impulse. He rules because there is nothing left that could oppose him internally. No bargaining, no performance, no audience. The void strips away relational identity. The Dark Sovereign is identity without relation. Gods require worship. Kings require subjects. Heroes require witnesses. The Dark Sovereign requires none of it. He is self-validating, because the void has already invalidated everything else.